There's the attitude that your body is kind of a vessel of gratification. It's just the means by which you feel around in a purely sensory world. And so when you stop being capable of that sensation, when you stop being able to be pleasure-seeking because you have a terminal illness or you're old or you're just depressed and you don't feel anything anymore, then they say, well, it's perfectly logically consistent to exit. And their only complaint is that you are suffering, not that you are achieving the ultimate suffering, which is just the extinguishing of your conscience.
Exactly. Well, okay, that's a very important point, and I would frame it very similarly. Once you have made the meaning of life pleasure, once a person is no longer able to, or at the very least, less capable of experiencing subjectively pleasurable states, then their life no longer has meaning. If the purpose of life, if the meaning of life goes deeper than your own particular emotions about the situation that you're in, then no amount of suffering actually justifies ending the life of a human being directly and intentionally.
Yeah, this is classic Solzhenitsyn existentialism. This is, and if you ever want to sort of escape, I've suffered with depression all throughout my life, I'm not going to minimize it, but if you ever want to get perspective, read the accounts of the people that have suffered the most and that you will probably never suffer, and they have come through it with sincere metaphysical convictions and faith in humanity. Viktor Frankl's wrote about this, Solzhenitsyn's written about this. If they can survive a gulag or a concentration camp, you can survive not being able to access Pornhub in your state because Utah's blocked it. Like, that's just it.
And Utah blocked it because kids weren't able to look at it. What an important detail of that story. And but before I pass to Ian, I just want to mention here with what you just said. I agree with you that when you look at people who have experienced the most tremendous suffering, they tend to be deferential to a higher power. They believe in morality. They believe in meaning. And of course, that's because experience is an expensive classroom, and those who've paid the greatest price often have the greatest knowledge, but also because I believe those situations actually select for people who have a deeper view of what existence is that goes beyond pleasure. Because if you don't view that to begin with, or you don't come to believe that at some point through that experience, you're just going to
it's a crucible for spiritual formation, yeah.
Well, being in the gym, man, with a personal trainer being like, you're 12 more reps. Now we're going up weight. Now we're going 25 pounds. That's like hell. It's like being in a kind of personal hell for a moment, just a moment. But after coming out of it, it's like, I don't want to kill myself anymore. I've already been through it, man. God is good. Like, this life is fucking great.
That's and that independent spirit is why MSNBC came out the other day and said lifting weights is right wing. Because you're an independent thinker. Once you master your own body, you're not contingent on other people's stimulants or pleasures to try and sedate that screaming conscience, then the universal homogenous state can't have you in their clutches.
Shoot, man. Yeah, I got to get way more right wing. I'll have to hit the gym with you.
Man.
Yeah,
but
next Monday,
one
baby.
point that you mentioned here is that's like your own personal hell. There's something here. There's actually something that touches on an important part. No, I know, but this touches on an important part of like the Christian tradition, which is dying to yourself. It's like to describe it as hell in some senses, describe it as like a small death. Like you are willfully embracing a form of death, but what is the outcome of that? A resurrection. Your muscles get stronger. You actually strengthen yourself because you've willfully embraced that small death.
Literally tearing your muscles, bleeding on the inside so that it can forge and regrow stronger and bigger.
Yeah, that small death has like led to a small resurrection in a sense. And I think we see that with all productive things that are painful, right? If you really buckle down and do your job, even though it's difficult, there's like a small death. You feel, oh, it's so beautiful outside. I don't want to work right now. But then when all is said and done and you've created this, it's like this moment of resurrection. You've created something beautiful because you willingly embrace that.
Yeah,
death.
I think there's a resistance to accepting that glory comes through struggle, right?
Yeah, yes.
Glory is through a lot of things, and there's a fear of hardship, right? So when we talk about censoring people's language or saying, you have to call me by these things, you need to make me feel good about myself, we are encouraging a culture that is avoiding challenge and avoiding personal growth through challenge. And I think that is what's most devastating to people today, is that you can never feel true satisfaction without really feeling you've achieved something. And sometimes achievement comes at a cost. I agree with you. I think you can't minimize, how crippling depression, anxiety, some of the emotional states that people go through can be. On the other hand, working through your struggle is ultimately how you become a better and stronger version of yourself. And it gives you a perspective that you are, I personally feel like, meant to have, right? You want to have insight into the world that makes you more in touch with the human condition.
I'm thinking about meditation. That's another struggle because it's easy to think. It's easy to get distracted and think about the colors you see or the noise you're hearing, but to have no thoughts, that's a challenge, and it is hard.
That's why prayer is a lot easier, because all you do is externalize your thoughts and you give it up to the big man upstairs and he can walk you through it. Rather than try and force yourself to be completely blind, you just vent your conscience out and you actually have a dialogue with someone that can help you out.
And there's also, I would say, there's also a discipline and difficulty to prayer which is kind of touching on part of what you're saying, which is, even though I don't recommend the form of meditation you're describing, I agree that there's something very difficult about not just allowing your internal monologue to drag you everywhere without taking a moment to reflect about what you're thinking about, what you're orienting yourself towards. It's really important, I believe, to develop a prayer life in part to escape that just constantly being led around by that almost nagging, that very ADHD jump from subject to subject to subject, just based on whatever enters consciousness.
You know why I don't pray by saying things in my thoughts, I just have no thoughts, is because I feel like it's polarizing to choose this is what it's going to be. Like with no thought, I'm not deciding it's got to be this now. I get concerned about polarizing my behavior in my mind.